One of the things that I want to show you, you see a lot of images like this in the West, right? In the West. So one of the things that excuse me, I say a lot is, you need to, it can be a good idea to travel or at least see the world from the perspective of other people, because then, we're not necessarily, in the West or in the U.S. or whatever the case is, not necessarily the center of the universe. But most people kind of think they are, because that is where, you are, so you imagine this is what the world is. But those of you who have traveled a lot, when you have the opportunity to kind of see the world from, it's like seeing this class from over here, it's a very different position than, kind of seeing it from up there. And life is like that, right? So when you're not the center of the universe all the time, you see different photos. So, and you have a different understanding of what life is and how it works, right? Here in the West, we see a lot of images like this. And I don't know, there's something about showing images of people in abject poverty that somehow it makes people somehow feel better maybe about their own conditions. And like here in the United States, as a race relations class, one of the things that I'm noticing about Houston as I'm looking at lots and lots of photos and video and so on is the amazing number of poor white people. There's so many poor white people in the United States. We don't talk about them, and we mostly don't see them. And so we have right here in Penn State, it's like, State College seems like it's really, really nice and it's really wealthy and all these rich white people. It's like, listen, man, you just got to go outside of town a little bit. Pennsylvania is actually a pretty poor state, a lot of poor white people. And so I'm really kind of noticing that, but mostly we don't see it. And what the media does is the media are us, right? It's not like it's some special group, so we are the media. And then the media is like, I don't know, somehow we feel better about seeing other people. And we see a lot of images like that. Like the guy in the upper left, he's a Pakistani man. And the kids on the right are a sub-Saharan African. And the little girl in the lower left is Ecuadorian, and on the right is a Vietnamese family, and we just see this poverty, and we have this idea that the world is just really, really poor, and that people aren't advanced, and the whole world isn't advanced, and like, oh my God, well, we must be the best. Like here in the United States, I think about like this white supremacist ideology that we must be the best, we must be amazing. And I'm like, just look around at your own deprivation, and travel a little bit. Like go to the Middle East. Go to the Gulf countries. Like, my God, you go to Saudi, to the Emirates or Saudi Arabia or Qatar. So I travel a lot. I travel a lot to the Middle East, and I go to Qatar, and I'm like, holy shit, you are so rich. Like Americans, we think, wow, we're the richest country. No, we're not. We're not even close. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, right? And so we think like maybe somehow the rest of the world is like this, and everybody's deprived, and they're not moving forward and not doing really well. And so we keep seeing these images, and we think about Africa, we think about this. So, but you go to Africa and you say, wait a minute, there are elites in Africa. This is an amazing intelligentsia throughout Africa. All of Africa, right? And there's this like, this culture that I'm not looking in the past, I'm looking in the present. People aren't just sitting around on the streets like the little kids on the right, like just with their hands out because they're starving with distended bellies and you can see their bones. I mean, people are thriving all over the world. And so this ideology of white supremacy really doesn't make a lot of sense when you really understand the world. And when you start to travel and you travel around all these other people that are so developed and so smart and so advanced in so many ways, and so thoughtful and moral and ethical and strong and vibrant and creative. And then you realize, wait a minute, that's like part of humanity itself. It's not something unique to Silicon Valley or whatever, or, I don't know, Penn State or whatever it is. I don't know, you know what I mean? And so it's like the robots in Japan, you know what I mean? Like, oh man. So what I want to do is try to step away from some of this kind of imagery. When you think about white supremacy and people espousing white supremacy, we're all the same around the world, by and large, and yet we're all different. So here, go to the next slide. So remember, I'm going to kind of go. Anyway, did I say anything that sparked anything? Did I? Are the sparks going? Are you seeing it? What do I want you to get out of what I just said? unless I travel a lot, I really have no idea. Here's what I want you to be thinking right now. Unless I've traveled a lot, and I not just resorts and things, unless I really traveled and really been with people and hung out with people, and I really don't know much about the rest of the world. So I feel like I don't know anything, and I've been in probably 50 countries, and I spent a lot of my time living abroad, and I work with people all over the world, and I feel like I don't understand the world. And then I come back here, and I hear people saying, America's the greatest country in the world, and I'm like, fuck, seriously? Have you ever left your state? I mean, honestly, what do you mean the greatest country in the world? Like, who told you that? Like, what do you know about America? What do you know about the U.S.? Like, what do you know about anywhere? Like, if you haven't left, if you haven't really engaged, if you haven't sat down with someone that speaks another language, and like even someone who's really poor. But I met these little kids on the street. They were, it was Ethiopia. It was Addis Ababa. And they were shining shoes, right? And so I sat down, my wife and I sat down, and we were talking to these two kids. They were out of school, so they were maybe like 9 or 10 years old. They're out of school, and I had them, shine my shoes, because like I'm not into people shining my shoes. Trust me, I'm not into that. But usually I'll just give them money. But these kids really insisted, and then we started talking to them and really engaging them. And the kids started telling me about the Constitution of the United States, and I'm asking them what the amendments were. Like, okay, what are the amendments and this, that? And he knew so much. He knew way more than most of my students, and he knew more things than I did. And I'm thinking, hang on a second. So then I started asking him about other things, and this kid knew so much. And he was shining shoes on the streets of Addis Ababa, and he'd only spent probably 3 or 4 years in school. And I'm thinking, how do you know that? Like, where do you? And then I'm thinking about back here, and people saying, wow, the Americans, we're the greatest country in the world. And I'm like, really? Do our 8-year-olds know all about the Constitution of other countries on the other side of the world? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing stuff. All I'm doing, you want to know what I'm doing right now? I'm just trying to flip for you. I'm just trying to get you to argue with me in your head somehow, because I'm telling you that you don't know something. And so now you got to convince me that you do. And so now you got to argue with me in your head, and that's what I want, and that's good. And then you'll go home, and you'll have a constant conversation, and you'll just keep arguing with me, and that's fine. That's like means I'm successful, because you're arguing with me. You got it? Because I'm telling you don't know anything if you haven't been around. And then you can say, who are you to say I don't know anything? I'm like, well, okay, you know something, but I don't know. What do you know about other peoples? What do you know about other people of different ancestral backgrounds? Like, what can you say? What can we say? Like, how can we know if we don't talk to them? I don't know. Fuck, I don't know. I don't know anything.